Hey there, it's great to have on the Zoom call today professional personal trainer Mr. Tom Downs. Hey Tom, how you doing?
Very good, Chris. How are you?
Pretty good, despite the global COVID lockdown affecting two-thirds of the planet.
Hey, it's you're in the right portion of the planet, then, eh? I'm sure it's not affecting you too badly, mate.
So we're just here exploring some concepts and your insights, Tom, on health and wellness and mindset. Seems to me that there's a whole heap of interpretations on this thing called wellness out there. You know, in the community, in the world, you've got bloggers and various sort of thought leaders, I suppose. What's your personal take on wellness?
Yeah, it's a massive concept in itself, wellness. That gets used and thrown around just as exercise a lot of the time. Yeah, I think it is just open to interpretation. But my whole philosophy on wellness is just all areas when it comes to like life balance, say like the exercise you're doing, the kind of nutrition that you're eating, the job that you have, the way you think about things, the inputs you have from the things that you listen to and follow and the people you hang around with. I think like full wellness would be covering all of those aspects. It's not about how hard you can go. It's not about how clean you can eat. It's like the whole philosophy all intertwined into one. Is That's why it's so broad and complex and thrown around a bit willy nilly. But it is pretty. I think the term itself would have to be defined as the whole.
Yeah. And if someone came off the street, Tom, and knocked on your door and said, "Hey, I want you to be my personal trainer. I want you to get me into this wellness thing," what would be a start from your point of view? Where would you look to start with that person?
Defining what that is to them,
Mm.
what wellness is to them, because some people will come to me and say, exactly what you just said, which really they just want to lose 5 kgs and get a bit of an eating plan. So it's not like all of a sudden we're not talking about wellness. So once we've defined what the person really wants or what they're really asking, that's when we'll sort of establish what we're going to be doing.
Mm.
But it's not, it's not often somebody really wants to fully take on their wellness. Everyone wants to be better and well, but like what I talked about, that whole philosophy of all-encompassing wellness, not many people want to tackle that beast.
Yeah. And in your training, Tom, as a personal trainer, your growth and development, your learning, what has it been one or two pivotal times or influences that you can nominate to that really inspired you to get into the industry?
To get into the industry, always been into health and fitness, and I wanted to learn more about that. The more I learned about that, the more it made sense to go into personal training, because that way I was sort of learning more about training and nutrition for myself as well. So it was sort of like a counterbalance on that one. And then, like most trainers, I wanted to work with athletes, but the more I started working with general population, and the more I realized how rewarding that was. And when I say general population, I do just mean people who aren't athletes and wanting to play professional sports. Helping somebody achieve their health or fitness or wellness goals in that area has been a lot more rewarding. Like if I'd trained Richie McCaw before he was famous, it wouldn't have made a difference. Like he was going to be Richie McCaw no matter whether I helped or not. But the impact you can do with someone in the general pop is quite life changing.
Yeah, nice. And if you think of clients and their progress in your business and breakthroughs, or even doing things they never thought they could do 3, 6, 9 months ago, have you got a recent experience, perhaps, Tom, of a client who really came through for themselves and perhaps their families? And what were the keys to that transformation, do you think, or that change?
Well, I've had some like the big thing over the last few years. I've got quite a few people doing the coast to coast, and again, it's not the typical coast to coast people. It's sort of the everyday person who's either jumped into a team and achieved something that they didn't think was possible, and it's been helping them has been quite rewarding as well. It's I've been able to tick both boxes, helping so-called athletes while they're doing their athletic endeavors achieve big things like by living a somewhat normal existence. They hadn't run before, kite before, or biked before, a lot of them. So that's been big, and the main reason they were able to achieve that was more through mindset and belief systems. Once they could believe they can do it, then it was actually quite easy from there.
And do you think it's important for PTs to walk their talk? You know?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, walk the talk is in. It would be very unlikely they weren't interested in it if they were wanting to do well. Like, it's hard to do well in anything you're not interested in. So I'd imagine, like, there has to be a tipping point with this anyway. Like, somebody who coaches Tiger Woods isn't going to have to be as good as Tiger Woods. But he has to like golf in some way, some form or another. So as long as they're interested in health and wellness, and then yeah, they'll be able to do well.
Mm. And in your learnings and your travels, if there was a Tom Downs success formula for health and wellness, what do you think the shape of that formula could look like for you and your clientele?
For a client to do well, the first thing they need to do is accept responsibility for what they're doing and what they want to achieve. Firstly, for taking responsibility means that they can make improvements. And secondly, to take responsibility of where they're heading. There's obstacles along the way that everyone's going to face. So if we can accept that, then we can put things into place to combat those as they come and not give up or quit. So once we've established that, then it's purely just establishing what it is we're trying to achieve, and then what are the action steps that need to be taken. So you can remove nutrition and exercise completely and get those things right. And then the nutrition and exercise is quite simple from there. But if we're just doing nutrition and exercise without all this other stuff, then we'll just go up and down repeatedly.
Yeah. So here we are. It was a day 12 or 13 of COVID lockdown in New Zealand. I lose track a little bit. A number of people training from home, as we've talked about, trainers doing online work and Facebook Lives, etc. If you had someone who had maybe somebody who's training pretty well prior to the COVID crisis, but their motivation just ran out the door, had a crisis of motivation perhaps, and they're at home and they're not doing anything, what would be your approach or strategies to just try and engage them to relight their fires a little bit?
Assessment and setting some targets and some goals, to be fair. Like, you've got two things that people are going to have to try to do. They're either going to try to hang on to their health and wellness until this ends to get back into normality, or you can also take this opportunity to take advantage of the extra time and actually really nail your health and wellness in other ways that you haven't been able to. So you can look at both of those things there. But the person would need to talk with someone, even if it's just their spouse or friend or whatever it is, talk about what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve, and then make an action plan of what you're going to do to achieve that. Everybody's going to go through that cycle. You see the jumping onto the online Zoom workouts and stuff. It's all good and well because people are excited and it's new, and then you'll see the numbers slowly dwindle as the excitement wears off, and now I'm not quite as motivated as I was in week 3. So that's the time where I think it's like more mindset stuff will become important, because it flows together, the whole wellness thing. Like, you stop exercising, you start eating worse, you start going to bed a bit later, you start getting up a bit later, then just by that time it's a lot of habits to reform.
Yeah, we were talking prior to the interview, weren't we, about training at home, and we're both used to going to a gym, so there's a spatial disconnect between home life and child parenting and going to the gym. So we're both sort of accepting we don't have the choice of going to the gym right now, and we're sort of battling through it in the home environment.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing, because like, I know what I'm doing and I'm struggling. So someone who doesn't really know what they're doing is obviously going to be struggling even more so. I'm also aware of the importance of hanging in there where other people may not have that much awareness of it either. So it's got to be tough for everybody over this time to keep grinding away, because I'm struggling with it too. It's like, I don't even know if it's boredom. It's just like you've just had this abundance of gear and gym stuff to use it. And I guess you can probably go back with an appreciation when you go back to the gym and think how lucky you are to actually have all this stuff at your fingertips. When I'm running on 2 9 kg dumbbells is all I've got, really. So Uh,
Two? Wow, that's big.
yeah.
When it comes to mindset, Tom, if we think of mindset as sort of a raft of attitudes that we hold in our brain and our mind, do you practice any philosophies or any daily practices to foster your mindset or to foster resilience in that space?
Yeah, I don't talk about my personal philosophies on that sort of stuff that often, to be fair. But as you're asking, we'll talk. But yeah, no, my morning routine's about an hour long, where I go through reading my affirmations, my goals for the next 12 months. I have action plans. I do 20 minutes of meditation. I have a cold shower. I have a pretty set routine that I do every day. I've done it long enough now that it's odd when it's broken, and it's easily broken when routine changes. Again, that has been a struggle. So I sort of have to make sure I go to bed relatively same time, get up relatively the same time, just to get that pattern. But yeah, I do about an hour every day that I do six days a week.
Awesome. And when we think of mind, body, spirit, and interconnectedness, Tom, is there a link there with whānau and your Māoridom, with your spirituality in your well-being?
I try to learn and take from most people I talk with in general around the sort of stuff, and just come up with my own philosophies, my own principles, and keep them ever evolving. I like learning about philosophy and religion, all of these different things from different people, and sort of finding out what their views are and why. And it's sort of, if you're open to it all, then you can learn a lot about yourself, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And in today's sort of time at COVID, there'll be a lot of stress at home, and families under stress. In sense of sort of stress busting, if someone's at home and there's sort of tension building, they're not exercising. Have you got anything that you could suggest to any of the viewers there around, sort of breaking that bubble of stress? What would you suggest, or have some tips and ideas in that space?
Yeah. So I mean, you'll know this as well, but what you have to do for these types of things is create habit over time. So if I go do this, someone will do all of that one day and then never again. So if you go like, the first thing I recommend you do is, like, in the morning, get outside, get some natural sunlight early in the morning, get some fresh air. It doesn't have to be physically demanding, but it just needs to be out in the environment. Then I would highly recommend that people get into some form of meditation. It doesn't have to be, like I say, so spiritual or woo-woo or whatever. Just be open to it. Get an app if you want. I see Sam Harris is a pretty good app. It's a course. So I think it's 50 days of meditation course, and he's just teaching you different aspects of meditation throughout as well. So like, that's what I was saying, you've got the opportunity to try some new things in your health and wellness, and I think now is probably a good time. So getting outside in the morning, nailing your breakfast every morning as well. Get your breakfast on point is something I always recommend people do. If you start the day well, it's less likely to go crazy. But if you go, I will have 27 pancakes, the chances are you're not going to have a salad for your next meal. Like, it's hard to come back from that for the day. So that'd be the three things that I would start with, is just like, get outside in the morning, do some form of meditation or breath work, and then you must do your Wim Hof stuff, eh? And then just nail your breakfast, get that on point.
You can come around for an ice bath when we're out of lockdown, right?
I do have a cold shower every morning too, actually.
And so, just talking about nutrition there, Tom, what's the essence of your approach to nutrition?
Yeah. In its simplest form, what I do is I get people, or recommend people, to, with their carbohydrates, the simplest way is to remove carbohydrates unless they're needed, would be the simplest thing. So if you're not exercising, the amount of carbohydrates, I'd usually try to restrict to vegetables with a small amount of fruit. If you start exercising, then you're burning carbohydrates. So we start reintroducing carbohydrates, and I do try to get that post-exercise in its simplest form.
Yeah. And in sense of the industry, Tom, with the lockdown, as we mentioned, like trainers going online, and you've been in the game for several years now, owning your own business. What do you see as the future of the whole game out there in health and wellness and training? and do you see that being shifted at all by the current COVID lockdown?
Yeah, I think business in general is probably going to be shifted to some capacity. I think people will realize like flying to Auckland for a meeting might not be as necessary once they've done 4 or 5 weeks of Zoom calls, and they realize the outcome they're getting is the same. I think there's an awareness of people's health and wellness that at the moment that probably wasn't there before. So I think people will be potentially more investing in their health and wellness as well. And I think with, say, gyms and trainers, I don't think it's going to go like offline, online. I think what will happen is there'll be this mergence of the two. And I think that will be what will happen. I say like, well, what I would be doing if I had a facility would be still doing the online stuff like, say, the Koha guys are doing. But then how can I keep that going post the situation where we're broadening our reach, because there are people tuning into the kilowatt classes or the yoga classes, and it's like that will create this thing where somebody goes, I would like, so if I was too uncomfortable to do a Zumba class but I really wanted to, so I could tune in from the comfort of my own home. Once I like it enough, then I wouldn't mind going to the real thing. It's like a concert's still better than a CD. So getting in there with people at some point. So I reckon that emergence will be what the only change going forward.
Do you think sense of community is going to be more important in gyms?
Yeah, I think so. I think if the gym owner and the trainers do that well, then they'll realize people have a realization of how important and how good those people are. The good ones will thrive because of it, and the ones who are just doing enough won't.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk to you briefly around obesity and eating habits here in New Zealand. We've got pretty appalling rates of obesity across the demographics. If you had Jacinda in the room for 5 minutes to talk about, health, well-being and eating habits, what would you table to Jacinda for the future and for our children?
If we just talk about all financial reasons why things can't be done first, because I think that's the counter argument with everything, and just what we would and should do, I think activity, play, healthy eating, all that needs to be started from young. I think everybody needs the ability to have fresh fruit and veggies and good food as well. I think there needs to be some form of way to minimize the use of shit food. From a business point of view, it's very hard to do. You can't just say, hey, you can't sell your stuff anymore. But that would be for her to figure out. It would just be voicing my opinions on it. Yeah, obesity is still going to destroy more people than this virus going forward. So it's still a bigger problem, really. Eh?
Okay, Tom, thanks so much for your time and your input today for this short interview. And finally, for viewers here, how can they connect with you if they'd like to knock on your door and have a PT coaching conversation? How do they find you, Tom?
They can just look up Tom Downs on Facebook, or my email is tom@fitconsultant.net.
Okay. All right, Tom. Hey, thanks so much. And we'll see you soon.
Cheers, Chris.
All right. All the best, mate.